What's going on, beautiful people? We are back again with another Mental Max Out podcast. I'm your host, Akeem Robinson. And for those of you joining us for the first time, thanks for checking it out. Mental Max Out is all about helping people change their perspectives, think differently, and get out of the hole. If you're back again, I celebrate your willingness to continue growing and challenging your mind. Remember, if you like what you hear today, make sure you hit that subscribe button or whatever platform you're listening from. Share it with a friend and follow us on social media at Mental Max Out Podcast. What's going on, great people out there? Back and in color from the living room, and we are excited about this.
I made a joke 5 minutes ago that we should say we're recording in front of a live studio audience because Serena's still awake and we have a house guest, but it's okay. We're really excited because we are going to start a little 4-week series. So we hope that you join us all 4 weeks, in the spirit of everybody's favorite holiday coming up, Valentine's Day.
Who says that?
I was just thinking that we should really dive deep into the conversation of relationships.
Oh, that was beautiful, babe.
Thank you.
I have a great story to share about Valentine's Day. We gotta go back in the time machine. So this was during COVID. You started to live with me, and it was probably the first week when you were there. First week she was there, she looked at me dead in my eyes and said, you're not that charming. And I was like, we're in the car going home. What did you want me to do or say? And she was like, well, when you're on the phone, you just say different things and you're just so much sweeter. And I was like, yeah.
Okay. Let me give you a little backstory. We had been long distance dating for 8 months. COVID hit, world shut down. I went to Florida for a wedding and never left because the world shut down and we lived together. For all you people listening out there who can relate, when you're in a long distance relationship, you're on the phone and you're paying attention to each other because your face is there, right? It's so easy on the phone to be intentional. And then I learned that when we started living together that all of that kind of wasn't the same, and that Akeem is a wonderful man. Clearly, I stayed with him and married him, but he wasn't as intentional, and I couldn't figure it out. I really couldn't figure it out.
You wanted to be watching like a Netflix special and me writing to you in like old English text of my love. The sun sets on your blessed face. Like, you wanted to be
I thought that, when we're on FaceTime for 2 hours and we're talking and looking at each other for 2 straight hours, I just assumed that living together, y'all, I've never lived with a significant other before Akeem, first of all. So I guess I just thought that when you live with your significant other, those 2 hours on FaceTime becomes 24 hours. And that 24 hours, 7 days a week, you were going to just pay attention to me. She
actually said that to me. She was like, no, I just thought you were going to be like that 24 hours of the day. And I was like, ain't nobody going to do that. I was like, I'm not going to do that. And she was just like, oh.
So if you're in your early 20s and you think that your significant other is going to pay attention to you all day, I got news for you. Yeah, that's not how it works.
Ain't nobody got time for that. But that goes into why we're doing this series, because I think it's just important to kind of shed some light on some real relationship type stuff. And not because we're the best couple out there. I think some people just don't want to share the real thing of what intentionality looks like. Yeah. Because even though I wasn't charming at the time, I still, in my mind, was doing everything that I thought in my power to make her happy, put us in the best situation to be happy in a time where not many things were looking good. To me, that was intentional. And I think, from your perspective, you were like, I don't think this is.
How do you find ways to be intentional in your relationship?
You have to understand that you're talking to a person. You can't forget the golden rule. Treat the person how you would want to be treated. And I think we forget that sometimes, that even though we're in a relationship, we truly think, well, my needs should come first. My dreams are more important than your dreams. My priorities should be met. And even though we're not saying that out loud, our actions, our behaviors, how we're going about our daily lives are doing that. I've had a long day, so because I've had a long day, let me get to myself first. I've been working and running all day. Where's the food? We're doing so many things, and we say these things We just want our needs met. And so you have to remember the golden rule is treat somebody how you would want to be treated. And I think that allows the person to pause for a second. Then the next thing I really think you should do is choose your words wisely. Choose your words wisely. If you're being intentional with someone, think about the next comment that you say to someone, because it's very easy sometimes to have a thought come in and you just blurt it out. But again, if I'm thinking of how I would want to be talked to, how I would respond to something, you should think before you speak or think before you act. And then sometimes that actually helps in communicating and being more intentional.
And I feel like it really starts there because we tend to think of intentionality as what we're doing, not necessarily what we're saying, right? And so when you can strip it all down and really look at the core of how to be intentional with somebody else, whether it's your kids, your relationship, whatever, it starts with your words and then your actions follow suit. Because I think that if you're doing all the right things and you're wondering why, it's not working, why it's not checking the boxes, well, what are you saying? Do your actions and your words line up? Because if they don't, then you might be filling one cup, but the other cup is still empty. And so I think that's really great because when you talk about being intentional about the things that you're saying, how often are you providing affirmation? How often are you checking in? Because I think a small check-in goes a long way, right? Hey, how are you doing today? How was your day? Were you able to stop at the grocery store, or would you like me to go? Just those checking in situations can really go a long way in terms of really taking the time to make sure that your partner is good.
So there was a study done on the art of communication and the art of being intentional. And in this study, they were actually looking at the words we speak. And they said that, believe it or not, and when you say something, over 30% of what you say, the first thing that they hear is your tone. I could come to you and say, I'm just really tired. The first thing you're hearing is my tone. Well, how did that come out? And then from there, they're actually looking at the word, like almost like 7% was the word, but it was like your tone, your verbiage, and your body language. Your body language was the second portion of it. So you're just like, you know what? I can say, I'm just really tired. And you're like, why are you frustrated with me? Or I can say, I'm just really tired. Those are the exact same sentence, but they have a whole different meaning. And that's what we say when you choose intentionality. You can be thinking you're being intentional. How do you look when you say it? How does it sound when you say it? Because at the end of the day, your partner is receiving the message long before the words come out.
That's so true, because I know there's a lot of times where you say something to me and I'm like, are you okay? And you're like, yeah. But whatever it was in your tone, no matter what it is that you were saying that could have been so positive and uplifting, because of your tone or your body language or whatever, how your eyes looked, when you get the bags under your eyes, and I'm like, are you okay? Because we're always aware of everything, right? I think especially as women, we're very in tune to our surroundings and the people around us, to the point where like we're almost looking for everything, right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, the intentionality of our partner has to be so in tune to what our needs are. Because when we had Serena, and I think Akeem has maybe told this story before, right after we had Serena, Akeem was super dad. He was super dad, super husband, washing the dishes, doing the laundry, doing all the amazing things. And there was a point where I snapped on him and I was like, you're not helping me.
Looked at her crazy.
And he looked at me crazy because he's doing all these things around the house. I'm laying on the floor playing with Serena. He's wondering, what the heck is this woman talking about? I'm the one keeping this house running right now, right? And the reality was, in that moment, what I needed was for him to just lay on the floor with us. I wanted to spend time just the three of us. So yes, the dishes needed to get done. Yes, the laundry needed to get done. But what was intentionality for me at that point was, hey, can you come down here and play with us? Fast forward several months, and Akeem and I had a conversation where he was still doing the majority of the dishes, still doing the majority of the laundry. And when I say majority, I mean all of it. And he looked at me and he said, I need you to help me, because I needed to be more intentional with what he needed. Mm-hmm. There were things where he needed me to step up and help him. And I think that when we talk about different ways to be a good partner and different ways to show up, it's always changing. because your partner is always changing and you're always changing. And so what was important to your partner 6 years ago may not be what's important to them now because of how your life looks right now. And so, yes, it's a moving target sometimes, but that's why it's so important to check in with your significant other. Hey, is this still helpful to you? Hey, is there more that I can be doing to support you?
I think the beautiful thing about what you said is we have to check in with our partners because, again, when we think about being intentional, you cannot be intentional if you don't know your partner. Now, a lot of people will hear that statement and say, oh, of course I know my partner. The problem with that statement is you're basing that off of when you first met. You're basing that off of in the beginning of the relationship. You're not basing that off of today. What happened when they went through this struggle? How did they change when they went to a new career? Like, they're constantly changing. So you have to be intentional with getting to know that person today. Because if you don't, and you're still basing things off of who they were, you're going to be behind. And when you're behind and you're like thinking to yourself, well, I'm doing this and I'm saying this, they're frustrated because that's not who they are anymore. They don't respond well to that anymore. So you cannot be intentional if you aren't learning about who your partner's becoming.
I'm going to take it a step further.
Oh, come on now.
The definition of intentional is done on purpose.
Come on.
And most people would see that and say, okay, yeah, on purpose, that means you meant to do it. I meant to check in. I meant to call you, right? It's not a butt dial, right? It's done on purpose. Done on purpose also means you know what the purpose is. So how do you know what the purpose is if you don't know your partner? If you don't know your partner, you don't know what you're supposed to be doing to do something on purpose. And so making sure that as you continue to grow with your partner and on your own, that those check-ins, they don't go away, because that's the only way that you're going to know if you're doing the right or the wrong thing. In order to make sure that what you're doing is purposeful and the right thing, you have to make sure that it's constantly right for the other person. Because I think a lot of times we look at what we would want. We look at what would make us feel good in this moment, right? Oh, I'm exhausted and I could really use, some wings. And you pick up wings for your partner thinking they're going to be jumping out the car for you, really excited about them. And they're like, nah, I didn't need this. I'm actually trying to cut back. But because that's what you needed, that's what you did for them. And that's not how it looks. But we're so used to, oh, I feel like this, so I bet he or she's going to feel like that too.
Not only is that a powerful point, it has to be intended with a purpose, and it has to be deliberate. We are given a framework that we think it's effective. And here's what I mean. As a man, you're taught very early, you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be brave, you're supposed to do all of these things. You grow up thinking to yourself, well, that's my job, that's what I'm supposed to do. So now you need someone to be intentional about supporting you. But how do you know what support looks like for you if you don't understand what you need? You're not checking in and being deliberate to well, in order to support me, I think I need this. And then being able to communicate that with someone. I think that's the important thing. When we talk about intentionality, you might know what you need because you spent years with yourself, but are you willing to communicate that? Because can they provide that? Are they willing to do that? And then from there, y'all have to work together to make it make sense for the both of you.
You're so right. I feel like I talk to people all the time, and the number one complaint in a spouse is he just doesn't get it, or he just doesn't understand, or she just, man, I just really wish you would do it this way, right? And the number one thing is, have you told them that? Have you told them that what they've been doing has been bothering you? Have you told them that you would prefer them to do something a different way? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so if you, as the person in the relationship, are not communicating with your partner saying, hey, I would really appreciate it if you would do this. I would really appreciate it if you would show me love in this way. I would really appreciate it if, and fill in the blank, because that's the only way and the quickest way that your partner is going to know. I mean, we're not mind readers. I tell this to Akeem all the time, and he tells me, I don't know what you're thinking unless you tell me. It's true, because they can't read our minds. Men cannot read our minds. I'll say it again. Men cannot read our minds, and nor do they want to, let's be honest.
And she's still going to try.
And I'm still going to try. And then I'm still going to call my girlfriend and say, he doesn't get me. But the reality of the situation is, of course he doesn't, because there are things that only I know that he's not going to know. There's no handbook, there's no rule book, there's no how-to guide, right? When you get in a relationship with somebody, because, well, that would be really hard. And so making sure that you are constantly asking and telling your partner what it is that you need.
So when I was younger, this is dating myself a little bit, so hopefully I ain't the only one out there. When I was younger, you used to be able to buy volumes of encyclopedias. And I was one of those kids that had the volume 1 through 30-something encyclopedia, the A through Z encyclopedia. It was all in my house. Oh,
Y'all, I'm learning this in real time, too. I didn't know this about my husband.
Yeah, so I had a whole encyclopedia collection.
Why? For what?
Because that's what people did back then. There was no,
there
was no internet.
Did you, like, was that your nightly reading? Like, what did you do?
What did you do
with them?
It was supposed to be like, hey, here's something cool about this part of the world. Here's this cool fun fact you didn't know about lizards. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, I had all of these encyclopedias, and they covered everything imaginable at that time frame. You are no different than those encyclopedias. You've spent so much time with yourself. You know yourself from A to Z. But the person you're with does not know that about you. So they constantly have to get a new volume of who you're becoming. But in order for them to get that, you have to open the book up and let them in to say, hey, when we met 5 years ago, I loved going there. I loved that kind of food. I had this kind of nutritional intake or whatever, but it's different now. Can we change it? Because they still might be on the last year's or years ago volumes. And that's causing resentment, frustration. And I'm telling you, when you're talking about being intentional, I'm going to warn you, it is exhausting because you have to choose and you have to think about someone else. When we're talking about being intentional, it's not about you. It's about someone else. And you have to think about, my response is going to have this effect on them. Do I want to say that? How do I want to say that? When is the right time to say that? Those are all the thoughts that go into your mind, and then you might speak. But that's what intentionality requires. Because if you're talking about trying to coexist with someone, so when we talk about intentionality, it is exhausting because you have to think about the other person and how they might receive the information. And it always goes back to that golden rule. How would you want to be talked to? How would you want to be treated if somebody was about to say what you were thinking?
It's all the time. It's around the clock. It all goes away in an instance when you change your tone or you do something frustrating or you snap on somebody or you don't do what you said you were going to do, right? And like at the end of the day, I think that you have to be consistent. Intentionality only goes so far, and what you do and say only goes so far as you're willing to take it. If you're not willing to do that day in and day out, then it kind of loses its luster, right? Then it's just hearsay. Then it's just, what do they say? Like, what's the colloquialism for, when you just say stuff to say stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, just off the tip of your tongue. Just like,
yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, whatever, because you could spend 2 days being so amazed. That's why people love vacation, right? People love vacation with their spouses and their significant others because you get uninterrupted quality time. And it makes you come back feeling like, wow, we just spent that, wonderful quality time together. Our relationship is renewed. And then what happens? You get back into the same old routine. You get back into your daily life. You got them kids yelling at you. You got work yelling at you. You got all these things. And what do you say? I can't wait till I go on another vacation. I can't wait till we're on the beach again. I can't wait till it's just you and me again. Why can't you create that space in your everyday life? You should be trying to create that vacation in your everyday life because it's easy when you can drown out the outside noise. What makes it challenging is when you have the rest of your life going on around you and you still have to give that attention and that focus to your person.
But the other thing is the fact that you're not competing against each other. If you're talking about being intentional, how are we going to be on the same page? Because I think a lot of times when someone's trying to explain their point, they're trying to explain their point to be like, this is the justification of why I said what I said. This is the reasoning of why I did what I did. Those are very me against you like statements. So to me, it's like when you're talking about being intentional, I'm trying to be on the same page with you. So can you explain that point again? I didn't understand, so this is why I did what I did. Help me. You have to try your best to be on the same page with each other, because I promise you, if somebody walked around your relationship with a camera and recorded you, you might be very surprised, and they might stop it and say, see that right there? That's actually you versus me, not you with me.
You start arguing again. You start picking at each other again. You start, the pressures of society start to become this microscope in your life, and you just find ways to not feel the same way. And I think that what you just said of, if you have a camera that follows you around, right? How often do you pass your significant other in the house and not say anything? How often do you walk past your significant other and not touch them? And I'm not saying high five them as you walk past in the hallway. I'm saying, like, do you stop them? Do you give them a kiss? Do you touch, their butt? Do you, what are you doing? Are you interacting with them? If the camera's following you, are you both just sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram? Because you'd be surprised, when we get so busy in our life, we feel like, well, yeah, I'm intentional because I talk to them. Yeah, but asking what they want for dinner and pulling something out of the freezer to heat up is not really being intentional, when you could have walked up to them, said, hey, how are you doing today? How was your day?
Because that's exhausting to them.
I was thinking that we could do da-da-da-da for dinner. What do you think? Just that extra minute of a conversation goes a long way, as opposed to, hey, you want me to heat up this food?
I'm going to say it. The reason why some people aren't as intentional in their relationships as they should be is because they're giving it to their children. Like, some people are giving so much of their intentionality to their kids that they have nothing left to give to their significant other. Some people are going to work being so intentional with their coworkers that when they get home, they have nothing left to give to their significant other. Some people are giving intentionality to others before they pour into the person they're spending the most time with.
A mentor of mine had this conversation a few years ago, talking about your commute to work. I commute into work, she commuted into work, and we had this conversation because, we try to check in and be intentional and call each other and things like that. If I called her and I'm on my way home and she's already home, she's not answering the phone. And vice versa, right? If somebody calls me and I'm already home, I typically don't answer. We got very candid and had this conversation because we both agreed. We give so much day in and day out to our coworkers. We're both very social people. Our jobs require us to interact and talk to people, right? So we're giving all of that all day. Then we get in the car on our way home and we're calling friends, we're checking in with family, we're calling our parents, yada, yada, yada. When I walk through that door, it's game time for my family. I have to lock in and know, when I walk through that door, everything else is out. I'm going to spend time with my family, because it's easy, that person you tried to call on your way home, they couldn't get to it then. But then they're going to call you 20 minutes later and you're sitting down having dinner with your family. Don't answer the phone. Because that time is now for your family. And she and I said, respectfully, I'm not answering you once I get home, because I have to give whatever I have left to my family and my husband. And it's so important, because I think a lot of times we're constantly looking at, where do we need to give our time? Where do we need to give things? And we forget that our spouse deserves and should have part of us. And I think that it's important to understand that they're not going to just be there waiting later, right? I think a lot of times we take our partners for granted because, oh, well, they're married to us, they ain't going nowhere. I know I've said that before. So this week, actually. So we're like, oh, Akeem, I'll have time for Akeem later. But if I keep saying that I have time for Akeem later, then what?
Gone. I ain't gone.
No. But if I keep saying I have time, that's not being intentional in our relationship. And here I am continuing to pour into other people when I'm not pouring into my own house. And I think it's really important as people that we're very self-aware of where our time and attention is going, because as you're listening to us, you might be thinking about areas of your life that you are being really intentional. It's just not with your partner.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Hopefully we got your head spinning a little bit. But we're going to leave you with something you can do to help you become more intentional. If you find yourself having to commute to work, to and from work, that's your time where you can be intentional with your friends, people you haven't talked to in a while, people that came on your mind. 5 minutes, a couple minutes. You can use that time to text phone call, something.
Don't text while you're driving.
Don't text while you drive. I speak text, but yeah, don't waste that moment and not use it to be intentional. And then when you're at home, because people think for some reason this happens a lot, when you're around your partner and you think about something nice that they do for you, tell them, because we spend so much time thinking about our partner and thinking about how awesome that they are, but we don't ever say it. We don't ever let them know what we're thinking. And then when we get so surprised when they tell us, you don't tell me these things, and we're like, well, I think about it all the time. Tell them, even if it's awkward, even if it feels like it's a time where you're like, I wouldn't say that to them at this point. It doesn't matter, because you want them to know I am thinking about you. Doing those two little things would put more intentionality out in the open, and it will make you feel good because you're not carrying all of that inside of you.
It'll start to feel normal.
Oh, come on.
Like when you start just letting those things kind of out, it'll start to feel normal. It's like farting in front of your partner for the first time, right? Like when you fart in front of your significant other for the first time, it's a little awkward. You know, it's a little like, I'm sorry, you know, and it's like, no, it's okay. It's a bodily function. Like it's normal. It's natural. Move on. And by the time you're 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in your relationship, you might be farting all the time. Intentionality and compliments and affirmation is the same thing. It's weird the first time, but the more you do it, the more normal it will be. And you'll be surprised because your partner will likely fall in step with you. Because it's weird for somebody to say, hey, babe, that shirt really makes your arms pop. It's weird, but then eventually he's going to say, now you say something nice back to me. You give me a compliment back.
Oh, okay. Hey, babe, you look awesome today. I read my lines.
But the point is that eventually it's going to flow back and forth. It's going to give it both ways, because you're going to be continuing to give it out to your partner, and they're going to receive it and want to compliment you back because it's going to feel more natural.
So what you're saying is intentionality is like a fart. Sometimes you just got to let it out.
Just let it out.
And the silent ones are the deadliest ones.
Because if they're silent, nobody knows that you were thinking it.
Bars.
We hope that you guys have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there.
Let somebody know about it. Keep coming back. Thank you for joining us on this exciting episode of Mental Max Out. We hope today's discussion has empowered you with the insights and tools to overcome the challenges of depression, fear, and doubt. Always remember that you have a support system on this journey, and every step you take is a step forward towards victory. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We greatly appreciate your feedback, as it allows us to continually provide you with the content that is most valuable to you. Stay connected with us on Instagram at Mental Max Out Podcast for a constant source of motivation, helpful advice, and a supportive community. Until the next time, keep pushing forward, and remember, you have the strength within you to max out your potential. Take care and stay strong.